I don't get upset if people call me that. Yeah.
Like, your shoes are a little bit dusty, man. Do you know what I mean? Like,
the jungle made me remember who I was again.
you guys essentially have shaped so many childhood kind of memories.
And it just kind of scared me too much. Everyone told me I was too fat. And I was just like eating all the Twinkies, like not really taking it seriously.
To me, to be fair. So I remember you first on our screens on like Inbetweeners, for example.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is like shaped your life in some ways?
It's completely shaped my life. Like, I remember I went into the audition. I just turned 17. I just left school, and I walked in there. Nadira Sakumar, the casting director, lovely woman, and it was only something like my third audition that I'd ever had, and I was a bit cocky because the first audition I'd ever had, which was for a crime drama called Blue Murder on ITV with Caroline Quentin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just done that, and it was my first ever audition. And my agent at the time said, there's no way you're going to get that because it's your first one. But I got it. So then I went for an audition for the Inbetweeners, but it was called Baggy Trousers. Then that was the working title.
Yes.
And I read the character breakdown. It was like the sort of the popular girl at school. So yeah, fine. And then but I walked in there and I had loads of makeup on. I was like all dolled up. And Nadira, I walked in, she said to me, you've got too much makeup on, you need to go out there and wipe it off. Mortified.
Yeah.
So then I went out, I was like, oh God, okay, wiped all my makeup off, and I went in, she went, no, more.
Yeah.
So I went out there, wiped the makeup off, and then I went and she was like, right, perfect. And I had no makeup on.
Yeah.
And I felt completely exposed, but I just loved the character so much. The character of it being this sexy schoolgirl, that wasn't originally meant to be that. They wanted me to just be a schoolgirl. I was a schoolgirl and I was playing a schoolgirl. So there was actually no sexual connotations to it. That all just came later because the world is full of perverts. So they see the school uniform and the blonde hair and they go, oh wow, what a seductive role. But I was just a schoolgirl playing a schoolgirl with no makeup on, so it was completely innocent then. And so I did the audition, and then I did kind of 3 rounds of auditioning, and then I got really cocky and I just said to them in the room, I said, there's nobody that can play this role better than me. This role was made for me. Like, you've got to give me a chance on this. I know I can do this. And then I got the role that day. And then from there we did the read through, and and I remember us all getting together and doing that read through and the rehearsal. And I have to say, I didn't know how big it was going to be. I knew it was going to be. I knew I was doing a cool sitcom on E4.
Did you know it would change your life back then?
No, not as much as it did. I thought, I'm going to be famous now. Maybe I might be a bit famous.
Yeah.
And then it just completely. And also, it's very different then because social media hadn't taken off then.
Yeah,
really.
Of course.
I think the Inbetweeners came out I think Instagram had come out like the day of the first episode that the Inbetweeners aired, or something like that. And I think we had like MySpace and all that, MSN. Do you ever dream about MSN?
Sometimes I still think that
I dream about MSN.
Do you know what I think? I think that there are still accounts that I'm still on that I've not deleted, and they're still there somewhere in the graveyard of the internet.
And they'll come back. They'll come back to it. But so it's like it was before all of that. So I kind of went into it very innocently with because now it's like, you know what it's like, you do a job and it's all about, right, you have to think about your social media, you have to think about Instagram, how I'm going to promote it, what I'm going to do. All I had to do was a lads mag. I had to put my underwear on the front of FHM, and that was the work promoted, done. But now it's like you have to sort of think about, your branding on your Instagram and how and the sort of events you go to and chat shows that you do. It was just very different then. And
of course.
It had a real way more innocence to it then, I think. So that's kind of how it all began.
Do people still call you Charlotte now on the street?
All the time.
Oh my God.
Charlotte Big Tits, Charlotte Big Jugs. People shout Will at me. People call me a bus wanker. But it's funny because
how do you respond to stuff like that though?
I'm a very, I am a feminist, whatever that means, but I am a feminist. I fight for, women's rights. I do all my campaigning and things. People like to really try and blame the Inbetweeners for a lot of the shit, a lot of the kind of sexual violence and abuse that came later in my life, online abuse and in the street. People try and say very much about that being linked to the Inbetweeners. Yeah, but you played a sexy pin-up schoolgirl. Do you think that's good? But I really try and split the two, because I was just doing my job. I was playing a role. I was playing a very innocent role, as I said. I was such a young girl, and I was just playing a schoolgirl. And so, my name in that, the nickname was Charlotte Big Jugs. So I try not to. I don't get upset if people call me that, because it's fiction. It's a role. It's not me. It's a role that was very much celebrated, and it changed my life. And I also have a sense of humour.
I think what I loved about Inbetweeners, and what so many people love, it feels like, like we had so many iconic shows that come out the UK, whether it's like a 40 Towers or something, but it felt like, especially for my generation, like this was our thing, because I grew up watching like a Fresh Prince, but still it's an American, it's an American thing, but this felt like, and there was that kind of wave of, let's say like The Office, for example, but this one felt closer to home. I never worked in an office environment. It's until you get a bit older, you're like, okay, I get the joke, but this is that thing of like coming of age, like it's so UK based, and it's like our thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it must be amazing being part of that, because you guys essentially have shaped so many childhood kind of memories, but also just there's like another generation now who get to discover that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You've gone on from that and had huge success to that, and was in, which I think is something that's absolutely iconic. So then you get into this place now of, going into the jungle. In this stage of your career, like what was it like then going into now a reality show? Because I guess, you have the pleasure of, going on a show like Inbetweeners and being an actress and playing a role where I guess it's like when you're on a show like this, is one of ITV's biggest shows, it's, I got to be myself now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where people sometimes can mistake you for being like, oh, I've always known you as that character, and I fell in love with you, the character, and you are that character, you are Charlotte. You know what I mean? Or you are that thing I've seen you in, but like now you're like, do you think going in there was like the way that you was able to kind of, it's essentially like be reborn in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's so liberating, because you go in there and and I realised when I was in there straight away that there was no makeup, there was no fake tan. I had to really leave all those insecurities at the door, and I just did. And the second I did that, from the beginning, do you know what? It was the happiest I've ever been.
Oh, wow.
And you're not boozing in there, you're not drinking coffee, you're not having any sugar, so you don't have these like highs and lows. You haven't got any of the pressures of everyday life. You're literally just swinging in a hammock all day, looking at Nick Knowles in his pants. It was like, I took every second of it and just enjoyed every second. And physically, it's hard, and you're missing home, and the experience is different for everybody, of course, but the stars aligned for me in there, because I just was the best version of myself. I was so happy. I was authentically me. Everybody thought I was going to be something that I wasn't. I think they thought I was going to be like the shower girl, a bit of this. And I just had my freckly, stupid little face running around, being an idiot and not caring, and that's who I am, really. Deep down, that is who I am. And so I really found, and it sounds so cheesy, but I've completely got back in touch with who I was again. I felt so lost when I went in there. We all get a bit lost, in our late 20s and about to hit 30, and especially for women, we've got all those societal pressures and things. And I was single, and I was like, oh, I'm failing at life. And I just really found who I was again. And don't get me wrong, I know that's a very privileged way of finding out who you are.
Yeah, of course.
In a ITV jungle.
But it is natural, because in some ways you've kind of like started your career off on the screen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you've announced yourself to everybody on the screen. So for you to feel reborn again just makes more sense as well. Do you know what I mean? I think it's different, the pressure that you have being a woman in this world, because if you just decided that you're like, I'm gonna go to this event, not wear no makeup and dress down, you know that you're gonna be on some newspaper where they say, best or worst dressed, and you're like, hey, hang on a minute, I feel reborn.
Pal's fear for health
Yeah.
of Emily
Yeah,
Atack.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
didn't have any makeup on. I'm
Yeah,
fine.
and in yourself, you're like, oh, I just wanted to just go,
Yeah.
like, but you don't have that opportunity
Yeah.
as much as men do, unfortunately. Do you know what I mean? It's
Completely.
like I've gone to black tie things, and I see other guys. I'm like, Rob, you just
Yeah.
like your shoes are a little bit dusty, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, come on, my guy,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Like, but I guess I understand like the pressures of what that must be like for women, where it's like you don't get the opportunity to be like, I'm just gonna wear my dusty shoes today, because
Completely.
it's like even when the camera's on, there's another camera on.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
So
Sometimes I leave the house, right, and I think, oh, I look so nice today. I'm really, well done, Em. And then I look at a pap photo of me from that day, and I'm like,
yeah.
that's so depressing. I thought I looked so good. I looked butters. And they make me look awful. And then they get the arse shot walking away, my flat arse.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? So like, and I do, I think that there are moments in this industry that as women, we have to grab them if it shows just this other side to you where you're not worrying about that. Because I spend my life worrying about my looks, about my weight. I did it when I walked in here, and I was like, sorry, I'm so pregnant, I look like shit.
No, but you're
haven't
pregnant,
booked
man.
my glam team
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
But honestly, people will watch this, and there will be people saying how awful I look. That is just the way it is, and I have to. There's no, I can't. I'd get used to it in a way, I guess. And now that it was worse when I was single. When I was single, I really hated people commenting negatively on my appearance because, and it sounds so kind of shallow, but I didn't want boys I fancied to like see all these really nasty comments written about my body, and because it's just a really fucking hard world when you're out there.
It makes
and
sense,
you're
because if you're
single.
single, you're more vulnerable. You're by yourself. Do you know what I mean? If you're with someone and you're like, ha, look at that, whatever. You're like, I don't care. I have someone here that loves me and loves me for me. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
So
So it's going through all those things as a young woman is so hard. But yeah, I think with the jungle was great. The jungle made me remember who I was again as a person, and it made me made me find myself beautiful in a very different way. I think.
So now, so you have a new show on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
How you feeling about this, man?
Oh my god! So it's Rivals. Gilly Cooper's a legend. It's with David Tennant, Aidan Turner, Danny Dyer, Catherine Parkinson, Nafisa Williams. It's the dream. It's the absolute dream acting gig, and it's such a nice transition from it's sort of I'm going back into that acting space again after doing stand-up comedy, and as I was saying before, I'm ready to kind of go back into that acting space again, but for it to be more exciting and kind of it's going to be interesting going back into that from doing all these indie films years ago when no one really knew who I was, no one cares, but now doing like this big fat fuck off Disney show. It's like I feel like my everything's been building to this point.
Do you feel like you're back in your acting bag as well?
And it's so funny because I keep going, when I went to jog, I really want to like have people take it seriously. I'm kind of done with those pin-up roles. I play an absolute sauce pot in it, and I love it. Sarah Stratton, she's naughty, and she's quite layered. It's like quite set in the 80s, and it's about television in the 80s, kind of showing what women had to do to get to where they want to be, and so it's got humour, it's got light and shade, it's got dark moments, and it was just so fun to film, and it's the role I've kind of been waiting for a really long time. And
this must be a great time as well to have those roles where, like when you feel like you're ready for it. Yeah. Because I guess I could imagine being an actor where you're like, I wanted this role like 10 years ago. But you kind of know, like, if you would have had that thing 10 years ago, it would be like, I don't know if I would have been ready for that thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
and I feel like I've grown as a performer, and I think, acting alongside people like David Tennant and people like that, you've got to be, I was going to say you shouldn't be hungover, but we were all hungover a lot on that job. It was really fun. But yeah, it's like it's just I'm doing this now in a completely different part of my life. I'm about to have a baby, and I feel like a grown up now. So I feel like I'm kind of going back to acting, but as an adult. I was doing it as a kid before, and now I'm doing it as a grown up, as an adult, and yeah, it's a really sexy, fun show, and I think everyone's going to love it.
Do you think you'll take your talents across the pond?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I've never... well, years ago, I did the whole LA thing, and it just kind of scared me too much. Everyone told me I was too fat. And I was just like eating all the Twinkies, like not really taking it seriously.
To be fair, so
yeah, it's pretty mad, isn't it? So I was kind of put off because I was so young, and I was a bit like, oh, that's a bit too scary. But look, now, like, yeah, I mean, I think I'd be more confident now to go into all of that again. And also, if somebody did tell me to lose weight, I'd just tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
So, yeah. America, welcome me in. Yeah, no, I'm ready for the next bit. I'm ready for Rivals, all of that coming out. It's gonna be so fun. Everyone's gonna love it.